IDF strike left 3 dead at Gaza's only Catholic church. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office put out a statement saying, quote, Israel deeply regrets that a stray ammunition hit Gaza's Holy Family Church. Every innocent life lost is a tragedy. We share the grief of the families and the faithful.
Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. I'm one of your hosts, Michelle. It's Sunday, which means we're going to bring you this week's top news stories from around the world, including but not limited to the fact that Israel has once again bombed Gaza and unfortunately hit the only Catholic church. It's kind of like, okay, guys, you had one shot at this and it looks bad. It looks very bad. Netanyahu and, Israel coming out and saying that they regret that they have bombed the only Catholic church in Gaza. So did I say the only one in Israel? The only one in Gaza. And so we're going to get into that. That is unfortunate to say the least. Speaking of unfortunate, I have to tell you, we've been following this story for years now, and it's, it gets to me and it makes me upset. So we're just going to continue to pray. But Tamara Lich and, oh my gosh, why did I forget his last name? Chris Barber in Canada. They led the anti-lockdown protests in Canada, the ones that we covered ad nauseum right here on Resistance Chicks. They were kind of some of the leaders there, and Canada has come after them with no holds barred whatsoever. They are facing 7 to 8 years in prison, all because of the fact that they felt that their rights were being infringed upon, and they chose to peacefully protest said rights being infringed upon. This is the dictator state at its finest. And I will say this, it's very interesting that the Genius Act just passed and Trump signed it into law on Friday here, because essentially what it does is it allows now the United States to do the exact same thing that Canada did to the truckers and to the protesters during the lockdown protests. If you will remember, they seized their bank accounts. They literally couldn't function anymore. And we all kept saying, well, that's Canada. They're partially a socialist country. They are a socialist country. And so, that makes sense, but that would never happen to us here. And now here we are, because the Genius Act has passed. It's now law. It's law, guys. This is the thing that really gets me on that, is when Trump signs these EOs, these executive orders, they can be overturned by the next president. But this passed Congress, this passed the Senate, and this was signed by Trump. And the only reason I believe that it passed is because Trump, and forgive me guys on this, I can't help but call a spade a spade. He has become the thug of Washington. He's become like the mob boss. Look at Thomas Massie. He is essentially saying, if you do not toe the line and you do not do what I want you guys to do, I will use all of my resources and I will come after your seat. And I will back and support your opponent. That's not democracy. That is Trump being exactly what the left said that he was for years, and we defended him, right? So we now have this Genius Act, which everybody's like, oh, it's a safe coin. No, it's just an open door to CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Michelle, why are you talking about it? It's world news? Well, first of all, that is world news, but I'm tying this into this story because it's inextricably tied. What they did to the truckers and to the protesters in Canada when they seized their bank accounts was the bridge too far for most of us going, hang on, wait a minute, Canada, you're all a bunch of dictators. And when Trump said, hey guys, put this on my desk, get it done. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was like one of the only people to stand up against it. He essentially has said, open door to us controlling all of your assets, your digital assets. And it's terrifying. So we're going to be praying for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber because this is, man, I'm just so mad about it. And we're going to get into it. So I'll move on from that because I'm going to save my anger for that for when we actually talk about all the details. But we do have something kind of cool happening in Poland. Massive protests. How many did Leah say that there were? I want to say there were 110. 110 protests were held across Poland in opposition to the push by Brussels to accept mass migration. And Poland isn't having it. And what I love about the Polish protests is they're so happy, and fervent and light. And you I don't care what side you're on, you want to be a part of it. So we're going to play some clips from that, which I think is great. Let's see. Wicked Psych says he should listen to what Massey has to say. He might learn something from him. Very, very, very well said. Glenda says, hello from Wyoming, USA. And I would love to hear a shout out from you guys today when you get a chance in the chat to put where you are at and where you are from and where you're watching from, because it's really neat that we have viewers from all around the world that tune in on Sundays. Little history lesson for those of you that don't know. The reason why our Sunday World News program happens in the afternoon and all of our other shows are in the evening is because in 2018, I think, late 2017, 2018, we had a lot of viewers from around the world, and their time zone is different than ours, obviously, especially in the UK. And we had a lot of followers that came to us because of our coverage of Nigel Farage, and they could never join a live show. And we were doing a lot of live broadcasts. So we decided at that time, because of the huge amount of world viewers that we had, that we would do a show that would be in their time zone. So essentially, we still are an evening broadcast. For those of you that are in America, I don't know this. This is our evening broadcast for people around the world, because otherwise they have to watch it on replay, or unless they're completely devoted like Barry is and Stuart the Brit often are, tuning in late at night. But this is essentially the evening broadcast for the world news, audience that we have. Which I think is really, really cool. And I didn't know if you guys knew that. So I wanted to very quickly, before we move on to the rest of this world news, Leah and I did 2 very serious shows this week. And so I know that these shows have been kind of heavy this week. If you've been tuning in, the shows this week,
we're going to do some Azerbaijan today.
We're heavy. So we're going to make today's show a little bit lighter. However, I will say this. I have gotten a lot of feedback from our shows this week, thanking us for covering the hard topics, because nobody really wants to do 3-hour deep dives on the disgustingness of Andrew Tate or Jeffrey Epstein and Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump, and what's the guy, the old man that lives in Ohio? What's his name?
Arthur.
Oh, yeah, Lex Luthor. I keep wanting to call him Lex Luthor because Leah keeps calling him Lex. Les Wexner. He owns L Brands, which is the limited Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, Pink, and a couple of other stores. Complete pervert. Absolute. He's the reason why we were all anorexic in the 90s, and even to today. So we had to do these really, really deep dives this week, and I highly recommend you watching them, if only for the feedback that I have gotten from so many people that are like, listen, I know that this is really hard, and I appreciate you guys covering these topics. And thank you guys. That feedback really means a lot to us, because when you do those deep dives, I'm going to be honest with you guys, inside baseball, after we do a 3-hour show like that, it's like you come off of it and you're just like, Like, you know what I mean? It's not one of those like, yeah, I'm ready to go do something super awesome in life. It really does zap a lot out of you, but so necessary and so needed. So please go back and watch the episode that we did. Tommy Lauren, Lauren Southern, they look similar, came out with an expose that chapters
And
from
that's
her
actually
book.
world news because Lauren is Canadian
She is.
and she got hooked up with Rebel News, who we cover all the time.
Like this.
Oh, that's my toothpaste.
It is your toothpaste.
My toothpaste, which you can get.
Oh wow, you came
my
in and we
tooth
just got
powder.
really dark. Let's make us light.
Remineralize Me. I think I was using the Rise and Shine because it's not as minty. This is the tooth polish, which we only are going to sell
3 seasons out of the year.
seasons because it kind of melts. It's got coconut oil in it. I love the polish because it adds coconut. The coconut oil gives you a squeaky clean. I'm going to give you a tip. When you use any of the tooth powders, if you want an extra squeaky clean, take a squirt. I use a squirt of peroxide.
Yeah.
Just regular peroxide, because peroxide, have you ever seen peroxide?
And baking soda.
But what that does is it gets extra plaque off and it gets in between your teeth and just like makes you feel all squeaky clean.
It's an explosion in your
Yeah,
mouth.
so my teeth are like, yee.
Okay.
Explosion in my mouth. So there's our little beginning of the show advertisement.
Beginning of the show advertisement.
Yeah,
So
for the tooth powder.
I love it. You know, I was actually just thinking about the tooth powder this morning because I refilled my powder with the Rise and Shine powder without the polish. So that's what Patriot Gallery and I've been using.
Well, and honestly, I was thinking about it. I am partial to the polish. Like, I need to add coconut oil, and it is what you can do. I would take a tablespoon-ish, maybe half a tablespoon, depending on, you want it crumbly. Room temperature coconut oil, okay? You want it to be soft, but not liquid, okay? And then you want to kind of stir it around till it like gets little crumbles, like topping for streusel, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want. And so that's what I'm going to do to my powder I have right now because I prefer the polish.
That's
I
awesome.
prefer it. I prefer it because it really just like. But speaking of Tommy and
I know. I keep
No?
saying, here's the problem.
No?
Tommy Robinson is in connection with Lauren Southern.
Yeah.
So I keep wanting to say Tommy Loren. That is a podcaster, Tommy Lauren, who we're not talking about. Okay.
Right.
But because their names go together, I keep wanting to say Tommy Lauren.
So speaking of
Lauren
Tommy,
Southern and Tommy Robinson.
Okay, speaking of Tommy Robinson,
Yes.
who we've been covering ad nauseum, and he's working with Ezra. Guys, we are not the anti-Jew channel. If you're here to hate on Jews, we're the wrong channel for you. Okay, we're not the Candace Owens of this world. However, I keep seeing a pattern emerge
Yeah.
around actual sexual predators.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So, what in the world does Tommy Robinson supporting Andrew Tate, but also working for Ezra Levant, why are they connected? I have no idea. But there's something connected to the Zionist movement, which is creating a state of Israel for the Jews, which I actually don't have a problem with. Fine, have a state. The Muslims have a state. The Jews can have a country. I don't care. Like, yes, fine, do the thing. But in their fervency, if you don't do it with Jesus, if you don't do it the way our founding fathers did with righteousness, you're going to end up on the wrong side of history in a lot of cases. And so, I guess I'm going to give you maybe a little refresher on what we covered with Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell, because that is what's in everybody's mind, and it should be. We shouldn't just forget. So this is world news.
Yeah.
Robert Maxwell was Czechoslovakian. All of his family were killed by Nazis. That's bad. Okay? Like, that's horrible. That's awful. I would see how that would, but here's the thing, that can make your heart get hardened. Okay? And so he goes to France and in 1940, and France in 1940 wasn't a great place to be. Okay? So he joins the government in exile, the Czechoslovakian government in exile in Britain. Okay? So he later actually becomes a British citizen.
Yeah.
And he gets awarded like the highest military award because he fights with the Allies in World War II. Like, he's legit a hero of World War II. Well, he also it becomes a Zionist. He's Jewish, and he wants a state. So he becomes a weapons trader.
Right.
Right. So when
there's good money
there
there.
was there is, but it was also probably ideological as well.
Sure.
These people killed my family. I have a hard heart. Think of it. Just picture how the villains are made. Okay. It's just like in Star Wars. If you can picture Anakin Skywalker, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to the dark side.
Hate leads to suffering.
Hate leads to suffering. Thank you, Yoda.
You're welcome.
Suffering.
You said it wrong.
Okay. So
it.
we're totally, we're Star Wars fans. And so hate leads to suffering. Hate leads to suffering. Hate leads to anger and anger leads to hate and hate leads to suffering. So, and that's actually true. It's not in the Bible, but it kind of is in the Bible. Yay, Yoda. But here's the thing. I believe he got caught up with kind of in an amoral type of psychopath where you just don't feel anymore, right? Yep. And you lose all sense of mooring of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So Robert Maxwell has a handler. We covered this. He has a Jewish Mossad handler. Here's the thing. You have to have, you're working with Mossad if you're bringing in the weapons.
Yep.
Mossad's saying, hey, we would like this many missiles, this ammunition, this at this port at this time. Robert Maxwell made that happen.
Sure.
Okay. That's how he got so wealthy. He also, was, I think he was supposedly running a publishing company, probably a front, as they would say, a money laundering. So he has a daughter, and her name is Ghislaine. All right.
And who was writing the novels on the island?
So that was Bill Barr's dad, Donald Barr.
Okay, thank you.
But there's something that nobody is really talking about, which is an interesting side information that you mentioned. You mentioned Donald Barr.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Epstein. At 20 years old, he goes to work for the Dalton School under Bill Barr, our former Attorney General, who was also, if you didn't know this, the 77th Attorney General of the United States under who? George Bush. Mm-hmm. He was the 85th Attorney General under Donald Trump.
Bill Barr was.
Bill Barr.
85th. 77th was his dad, Donald.
His dad. No. Bill Barr was the 77th.
He was, okay. He did it twice. Yes, I did know that.
2 times, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but his dad was OSS. So he, are you Secret Service kind of, are you government always?
Right.
Right? So why, I don't know how he gets to really running this most prestigious school in New York, but he does. And he hires this 20-year-old who's a college dropout to teach the elite's children. And so Jeffrey Epstein makes these connections with these elites, okay? But what's very interesting, here's just a side piece of information. I don't know what to do with it. Donald Barr, which is Bill Barr's dad, was into, I'm going to say Scientology for sure, because it was L. Ron Hubbard and that Aleister Crowley movement that was into like SpaceX.
100%.
That's like, you don't get SpaceX from anywhere else, but L. Ron Hubbard, right? And that's where I think
for those of you that missed the show on Friday, y'all know who Bill Barr is. His dad, Donald Barr, wrote. It's very interesting. You're going to retell that part?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
So, but here's the thing. This is why I think Tom Cruise was trying to do some of the space stuff, because that was like, that's his religion. But it didn't go over very well. So we went back to, the spy stuff.
You mean like, what was the one that he did? War of the Worlds?
He did a couple.
Yeah.
But he was really trying to do the SpaceX stuff, but it didn't go over very well. And he actually, very interestingly enough, there was an interview with Joe Rogan and a guy who explained that the Eyes Wide Shut movie that no one should ever see, that I didn't see, with him and Nicole Kidman, was actually, the work was supposed to be about child trafficking, but they cut the scenes out. And the guy who wrote it was like, why did you ruin my movie? And at the end, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise's daughter gets taken away by these bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be an allusion to them giving their child over to child trafficking.
Yeah.
So it's really, so that's where the elite are at. And how do we know this? So like the whole Comet Pizza and the Comet Ping Pong and all that stuff. And John Podesta was the, was he chief of staff or what was he for Clinton?
I can't remember.
But he was that sick guy who worked with the
Right,
spirit cooking
right.
with Marina Abramovich and had this like, you know, whatever, do as that will. I don't know what he had. He had,
Senior advisor to the president for international climate policy.
he was somebody else. He did more than that.
No, that's, wait a minute.
Yeah, John Podesta. He is the, but what was
Yeah,
he?
but that's what he just did for, he just did that for Biden.
Okay, well, what was he under Clinton? Just put in Clinton. You'll figure that out. But John Podesta was heavily involved in the Clinton administration and with the Democrats. But that whole group of people.
He was chief of staff.
That's what I thought. That was what I thought. He was the White House chief of staff. Just this really creepy guy. So his brother, Tony Podesta, they were connecting him to this like Comet Ping Pong, where there's this pizza restaurant that does these nights of like talking about like sexual things and really perverted things.
Right.
And they had all this artwork that they took down, and
Right.
like Pizzagate was a thing in 2016, and
Right.
it actually really was a thing. So Tony Podesta, somebody actually did go through his home and take a picture of all this artwork.
Right.
And some of the artwork is,
Like the Bill Clinton in heels.
I don't know if that was his or not.
Okay.
Was that? But no, the children.
Oh,
So
yeah.
his is like
we can't even reshow
the,
those.
like
I
4
can't
or
reshow
5 little
those.
girls
Yeah.
in little swimsuits, like
Their
in
underwear
bondage.
half down, yeah.
In bondage with their hands behind their backs, and like some with like, you know, like gagged. And then like his big piece of art is like this one piece of art that represents some sort of weird a sexual abuse, where it's like a person that's like totally, you know, bent. But he has all this creepy, weird artwork. And like we're talking about what, you know, Tucker Carlson was talking about on his interview, where I'm getting a lot of this information from. And I've seen the pictures, right? Is that these people are sick. And like if you go into somebody's house and you see all these children, you should not have pictures of children in your house, by the way. Only pedophiles have pictures of children in their house that aren't
Yeah.
like relatives of them. Or like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like nobody has that, like maybe I don't have children in my house. Like what's your sick artwork? And so here's the thing. I did not know this. This was a new piece of information. So to tie all this like elite pedophile network together,
Okay.
Tony Podesta was interviewed and asked, who is your favorite artist? And he names this particular artist who does all this weird sexual bondage artistry because it's her, quote unquote, working out the fact that she was severely raped as a child.
Oh,
so
wow.
she does all this child like molestation artwork.
No.
And that's his like favorite artist.
Ew.
And it's really gross.
That's
so
gross.
when we are pushing Trump, we're pushing him to release files and connections to this elite pedophile network. So back to Maxwell. This is world news. So this is world news. This is probably right now the most newsworthy world news that we should be talking about, because this is the cover up that's happening in real time. Right now, Tulsi Gabbard, this is also world news, has come forth and said that Barack Obama was the head of an organized smear campaign against Donald Trump for the Russiagate hoax.
The PP gate.
And she says that she's going to go after everybody, and she knows that people are going to have to be arrested and people are going to have to go to jail, or it's going to look like just another Republican show. Like, remember all the hearings that we've had? Remember Trey Gowdy and him pressing Hillary Clinton, and she says, at this point, what difference does it make? Right? So we have been I am tired, and I'm not going to do it again. The boy who cried wolf, if there's a wolf this time, I don't care. I'm out. I have tapped out because I have spent your time, okay? Your time at these dog and pony shows, at these hearings, at the Kavanaugh hearing. We have spent hours covering how the leftists went to Washington and they like tied themselves, to bars, and like they took over the Capitol building, which by the way was not an insurrection somehow. And the way they treated Kavanaugh and the way they treated Amy Coney Barrett, and my mom even called her a witch at the time, but it was called being Kavanaugh because there were these false accusations brought forth, and we spent hours on these we've spent hours on all of the Republican rah deals. Come to find out now, Kavanaugh votes more with the Democrats, more with the radical leftists than he does with the right. Now, That's insane. Amy Coney Barrett is even more to the left and to the center. And people say that the left is like decrying that it's like 6-4. No, the Amy Coney Barretts, Justice Roberts, and Kavanaugh are not in our circle.
Right.
Imagine if Biden put in a leftist judge that voted more with leftists than with the right, or then voted more with the right than with leftists. Yeah. Okay. No, these people are happy to have Trump put in the Kavanaugh. So I am tired of going down the path of, is Obama going to be held accountable? At this point, what difference does it make? Okay. I don't even care. You know what? I don't care. And the fact that they want to shove us all into another arena. What I see is like, they want to go over here and watch this show. Don't look at this show. And here's why this is important, because JD Vance told us, we're going to release the list, and Kash Patel said we're going to release the list, and Dan Bongino and even Trump himself ran on Hillary Clinton's connection. So here's the thing. Glenn Beck said something that doesn't make any sense to me. He said that if Trump were on the list, they would have used it against him. Of course not. If you're guilty and you're guilty, you mutually exclude each other, okay? Yeah. Because everybody knows that Clinton was on the Lolita Express, which I didn't know was nicknamed the Lolita Express after a book of a guy who kidnaps like a 12-year-old girl and takes her around the world and rapes her. Mm-hmm. It's a book.
Yeah.
Okay. Who writes these sick books? So that's what his airplane was named. And we know that Bill Clinton was part of this network.
Right.
Okay. So if Trump is on it, of course they're not going to go after Trump and Epstein. Okay. But here's the thing. The elites, that's why I brought up John Podesta, and now I'm going back to Maxwell, because what we fear is true. The elites have run and do run sexual perversion networks. That's 100%. What I'm just going to call it. And before, it was actual kind of hearsay. We didn't really have a lot of proof, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at the cover-up and I'm looking at these guys and people that have operated out in the open for years. Like, we covered a man named John Casablancas. John Casablancas was the head modeling agency. It was the head modeling agency in New York in the 80s and 90s. He, quote unquote, married a girl that he pulled into his modeling competition at 16 years old. 15 or 16, and married her
at 17.
At 17 years old. She looks all of 17.
He was 50 at the time.
And he was 50. He was running a pedophile network. That's a pedophile network.
But it was called, if you guys missed our show, and sorry for the refresher for those that did tune in, but it's still good to hear it a couple times so it sinks in. It was called The Look. Mm-hmm. It was called The Look. And this was a modeling competition
that ran from like 98 into the early 90s. And Trump, 88 to the mid 90s.
And Trump partnered with Casablancas on this. Now,
2 years, 91 and 92.
So Trump has distanced himself from Casablancas.
Says he doesn't even know him.
He says he doesn't even know him, but they were really, really good friends.
There's pictures of them everywhere.
And Trump was a part of all of this. But why did Trump distance himself from this guy? Because this guy was running essentially a sex trafficking ring through this event that Trump hosted at the Plaza Hotel.
But here's the thing, and Michelle, maybe you can bring up a picture just to give people an idea of John Casablancas with Trump. And here's the thing, these guys have owned the judicial system for years. There were girls who brought cases against him and he got off. And the woman that I think it's his second or third wife he's married to, even, I believe right now, I think he's still alive. Okay. And so why am I bringing all of this? I just bring up that page and you can see them all. Guys, this network is in the spirit of, and here's the thing, I can go with a different, there's, Trump and Melania. Trump met Melania
seen that picture,
in 1996 when she was 28.
But she was part of the Look competition as well.
Here's the thing. She was part of the Look competition as well, brought in over by those are so young. Those are not women. The problem is Trump and all of these guys, those are 14 and 15 and 16 years old girls, maybe 17. Those are very young. Trump being pictured with these girls. The problem is that these men in the 80s and 90s saw 14, once you're post-puberty and up, as women.
Exactly.
So I believe the better word, I'm not going to use the pedo word anymore because I feel like it's been muddied.
Okay.
It doesn't have the same oomph and it doesn't have the same meaning because people will just argue, well, that's not pedophilia.
Okay.
Okay. Perverted.
Yeah. They're perverts.
And so you have to turn from being perverted. And when grown men wake up and say, oh my gosh, when you have a daughter who's in 8th grade and 9th grade and you realize that they just put Hello Kitties on a telephone or something, like they're little girls. Okay. And this whole magical line of she's 18 gets away from the idea of you can turn 18 as a senior in high school. And I want you to picture Donald Trump and Casablancas at 50 years old, sitting outside of, let's say, your local
Swim club.
Well, I was going to say like high school soccer game, just ogling over the girls. They're creepy. Whenever you have grown men who are and I've experienced it, so it's super creepy and it's wrong. And we have to get men out of that mindset, out of that perversion, that it's somehow
and
okay.
get society out of the mindset of making excuses for that as long as it's under the guise of modeling. You know what that is? It's the same thing as saying they were just acting because they had a sex scene, but it was just acting. Or they had a kissing scene, but it was just acting. No, you're physically with this person. That's the same thing. You don't just get to put it like, oh, these men are judging the figures of a 14-year-old and then tell me, oh, it's just modeling.
And so when we look at Jeffrey Epstein, there's some sort of cognitive dissonance where everybody can see 14, 15, and 16 with like Virginia Giuffre as wrong.
Yeah.
But then when we say it's wrong for Trump to ogle after, so it's not just wrong for Jeffrey Epstein to have made those girls do things. It's wrong for him to bring them in, to see them as women, to see them as sexual beings, to be used in any way whatsoever.
Right.
Okay. And remember, we had a quote of a girl who said that she was asked out by Donald Trump at 17. And he said, you're a perfect age to go out with, right? Not too old, not too young. That's just creepy and weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a creepy, weird, predator, pervert. Like
Right.
that, those are the words that I'm going to use. Like if you're actually physically praying. Now I understand that there's a generation of men who, the problem is they're not getting married and they're not staying married. So when you have this idea that girls are coming of age at 14, 15, and 16, and like you're reading some of these older books, and yes, they are coming out into public and like Jane Austen, and they are coming out to be married. And so there is a thing, but the age difference here,
Married to young men.
yes, the age difference here is really what we're calling into question. You know, and we're not calling into question pure motives. We're not calling into question people who want to be married. And we're also like, even in the Jane Austen books, 16 and 17 was way too young to be married. There was courtships, and the age to get married was actually like 22 or 23. That was like when women would actually get married. And so this idea that we can just gloss over all of this. So I bring all that back to Maxwell. So Robert Maxwell, the father, he becomes the number one purveyor of like weapons for Israel, especially like during like their 6-day war, I believe, and all that stuff. So there was a weapons embargo on Israel, and he was the one helping Israel get weapons. So I think it was Sharon who said that when Maxwell died and they buried him in the most holy place that you can be buried in Israel, in Jerusalem, and he was not an Israeli citizen, and I don't know if he's ever actually been to Israel, but he was Jewish. He was a British citizen, and he said that every living president was at Ghislaine Maxwell's father's funeral, and every like intelligence agency, right? And they were all there. And it says it cannot be known what he has done for the state of Israel. All right. So then Ghislaine Maxwell had a handler as well who has kind of almost defected from Israeli intelligence. We read some clip from him and saying that Ghislaine was an agent of Mossad. Okay. As was her father. So you're looking at the situation and you see Jeffrey Epstein here and you're like, he's Jewish too. And he's not working for Mossad, and he's not working with Israeli intelligence, and he's not. No, of course he is. And these are the ends that these are the things that the wink and the nod that is the Israeli government either looked over, like with a Hillary Clinton, and remember Clinton was very much pro-Jewish, pro-Zionist, and everything like that. I don't know why America needs to be so tied to the hip with Israel, but it's become that way. There's no other country that has a representative for each congressperson. Thomas Massey was like, I'm supposed to have an Israeli handler that can come and talk to me, a lobbyist on anything
From APAC.
And this does not make sense, because you know what? I would much rather have, does Nigeria have a representative, one particular representative for every member of Congress?
Right.
Does Ethiopia? Do any Christian nations? Does El Salvador? No, it's first of all, it's just not fair. It's plain not fair. Why do we get to send how many billion? I think it's like 60 billion to Israel. Why aren't we sending that to Nigeria? Why aren't we sending that to Ethiopia? Maybe we are. I don't know. But we shouldn't be sending it to Israel. You people have enough money. You're one of the richest countries in the world. You guys know how to make money. You make the Soda Stream. Okay, you guys are fine. You don't need our money, and you don't need our weapons. You can make them yourselves.
Wow.
Okay. The thing of it is this is the deal. This is why we need an excuse for war. And Michelle, when you're trying to make a product, we have products and we have different margins on our products. Okay. What we don't have is a Tomahawk missile that probably has a margin of profit to in the millions. Okay. So you need a reason, and the reason is, oh my goodness, this is the Middle East. The big bad Muslims are always going to be attacking Israel, so they need a ton of weapons. And so we want to, and what's hilarious though is we're also supplying the weapons to Saudi Arabia as well. Who's your enemy then? Okay.
No. This goes back to World War I and World War II. There is no enemy. The only good guys are the arms dealers.
Right.
Seriously, that's who benefits from war. Who benefits from war?
We're all excited because
The military industrial complex.
I hear people legitimately with honest enthusiasm say, Leah, Michelle, when you have these military contracts, it brings jobs to America because Americans need the jobs to make weapons.
Rosie the Riveter.
That's insane. You know what? We don't need a job if it's to make Tomahawk missiles for another nation, right? So people are all excited. Yeah, we're so excited because we're going to send these missiles to Ukraine and it's going to bolster up a community that's making weapons. What you're saying is the same line that we were all given in public school in the 80s and 90s, which said World War II, there was something really good that came out of it.
It really brought the economy back and it brought women to the workforce.
You're talking about dead bodies. You're talking about missiles. You're talking about these tanks are not for show. These tanks are to roll over into towns, into cities, and blow things and people up.
What brought us out of the Great Depression? World War II.
World War II. That's what they all say. And the fake fiat dollars, right? So what Michelle and I try to do on this show is get to the root of what is going on here. So there is a there between Mossad and Israel and Epstein and the child pedophilia networks. Okay. They don't want us to see it. I don't actually know Israel's perfect connection, but I will say this. It seems rather odd. There was this group called the Mega Group, MEGA, odd, right? It was created by a man named Lex Wexner, who was, and Michelle spoke at the beginning, the creator of L Brands. The Limited, which, you know what, every time I went into that store, like I could never buy the clothes there. It felt weird. They were always expensive. And the Limited and Abercrombie and Fitch and Victoria's Secret
Bath and Body Works,
and
Pink.
Bath and Body Works. But the clothing stores, every time I went into any of those, it always felt weird. I used to get this Père Glacé my grandma would get from Victoria's Secret, which I love the smell of. It was just a spray, but that's the only thing I ever got from Victoria's Secret. And Victoria's Secret it's run by Jeffrey Epstein's boss. Not only Jeffrey Epstein's boss, but Les Wexner, one of the richest men in the entire world, has the biggest, most expensive house in Ohio.
Still alive, by the way.
Still alive, by the way. Okay. how he's not had a grand jury against him. Jeffrey Epstein ran his entire estate with power of attorney. He could have sold Victoria's Secret. He could have sold his home. He had access to everything.
And he had a house on his property
I was listening to somebody give a test
right here in Ohio.
a story of when he met Jeffrey Epstein one time. And he came in to like Les Wexner's house or something. And immediately he put his feet up on the guy's desk. Almost like a power move.
Oh, that is a power move.
Like, I own you.
Yeah.
I own you. He was so arrogant in what he did and what he ran. And so the Israeli government had to cover him up. You're buying people off. And here's the thing. You're looking at Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail for trafficking girls. My question is, why wasn't Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine put on the trial at the same time? Because we know that she was convicted of trafficking girls to Jeffrey Epstein. But what's very interesting, and this all goes to even the MAGA movement, Steve Bannon has 15 hours of interviews with Jeffrey Epstein. Supposedly, he was making a documentary in 2017 and 18 to actually rehabilitate Jeffrey Epstein's image.
Who was making this documentary?
Steve Bannon.
No.
Steve Bannon. So
That seems fishy.
Max Blumenthal posts the trailer to the documentary that Steve Bannon was supposed to put out.
Okay.
He says, where is this? Where's your information? Where's your video? Steve Bannon comes out this week and says, I'm going to release it. The documentary will be released. And he says he's now on the opposite side of we're going to name names. We're going to show you all the connections, all the elite perverts. So he's saying he's going to use all of his 15 hours against Jeffrey Epstein. But Jeffrey Epstein's brother said that it was designed to rehabilitate Jeffrey Epstein's image. My question is, if you're doing a James O'Keefe style undercover, this would be Steve Bannon 4D chest, and this is the only kind of 4D chest that I would believe. Was Steve Bannon going to Jeffrey Epstein saying, I'm going to rehabilitate your image? But he was looking to find clips and things to take him down.
Now it all just seems so fishy.
Okay. These are the stories that are very real, that people are really talking about right now. This is not hearsay. Well, obviously it's a lot of hearsay, but these are very real things. So back to Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine. Robert Maxwell introduces his daughter, who's Jewish, to Jeffrey Epstein, who's Jewish, and they stay together forever. Okay, they're just together forever. And then Ghislaine gets involved in this perverted trafficking ring, and she goes and finds girls in different schools and has them come and do the massages, and hundreds of girls. And lo and behold, they would look for girls who came from fatherless homes. And then they found one that didn't come from a fatherless home, and her parents snitched, basically. And we heard the one testimony of the girl who was taken all on her own to the ranch in New Mexico, which was never raided, by the way. And it was just basically some sort of sex dungeon. I guess that's all you could call it. And the girl's picture, she looks very much like a friend of mine from high school. And she was like, 15 years old. So
she brought her
young.
homework with her.
She brought her homework with her. Of course she did. So these networks exist. But the problem is a person like Donald Trump doesn't see the problem with Jeffrey Epstein. And what's happening, the darkness that I'm seeing around MAGA is a satanic spell. We're going to get a little spiritual here for just a second. Okay, so don't want to lose you guys. A satanic spell to get you into agreement with sex trafficking. The devil needs you guys. The devil needs MAGA to be in agreement. He has brought a Pied Piper to whistle in Dixie. Don't look at Epstein. Don't look at Epstein. Don't look at Epstein anymore. You're riled up. You get him elected because you think he's going to expose these pedophile rings, which we all now know. Yes, we are having a new kind of understanding that it's an abuse, pervert network of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I don't even care if they're 19 or 20-year-old girls. You're trafficking them, okay? And even just bringing in girls to look at them to be sexually stimulated by young girls is still perverted. I don't care if Donald Trump is like, I didn't touch any of them, I actually assault any of them. But then we do have the PP gate or the thing, and we've got the they just let you grab them by the blank. So which means he probably did go up and just grab some girls by the blank. Okay, it's still weird. It's still wrong, okay? And if he obviously what kind of weirdo is constantly surrounding himself with young women?
Here's the problem, though. There are people that I have continued to be friends with throughout that I have not wavered, and my friendship with them is solid. I'm going to use Banners for Freedom as an example because I don't think that they'll mind. They are as pure as the driven snow, as far as I know, and wonderful, amazing, beautiful people, and I love them to death. But just for 1 second, okay, imagine, and you guys have seen us do multiple events with them. We've been, tied at the hip with them on many different things. It's like everywhere we've gone, here they are, and we've gone to their place for different places. So we are friends with them. Okay. Let's just say, for argument's sake, something were to happen and it would expose that Robert and Jamie were corrupt sex traffickers. They're not. Okay. They're not going to mind me using them as an example for this. They're found as sex traffickers. And then all of a sudden, despite all the footage, despite all the facts, despite everything, Leah and I are like, well, we didn't really know them that well. We didn't. I mean, we did a couple events. There's a couple of pictures with us, but we weren't friends, right? Mm-hmm. We had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Not true. And in fact, if anything were to happen with Robert and Jamie, the authorities should question us because we're close to them. Okay. And if the authorities don't question us, then that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm saying. These people, all of them are Donald Trump's friends. Mm-hmm. And yet nobody in MAGA, because we're super supportive of Donald Trump, wants to ask, hey, Trump, is there a reason why you're not releasing the list of your friends? Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you're saying that what was we all believe to be true about Jeffrey Epstein is now a hoax and you were his friend? And then I come out and literally say, oh, no, everything against Robert and Jamie is a hoax. Like, wait, I have an interest there, okay? If anything, Trump would have to recuse himself from even talking about it because he's so tied to it. He is in the daggum smack middle of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You don't get to just say, oh, it's some hoax now that we, for 8 years, have been being led along like a little piece of cheese on a string out in front of us. You don't get to do this because let me tell you what it looks like, Trump. It looks like you're involved.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Tell them about the conversation you had with our neighbor.
And I'm not the only one that's seeing that. So our neighbor, who also runs a business across the street, and he has since before I was born, and his dad ran the business. It's a lawn mowing business. And I'm over there to get a new strap for my weed eater. And he literally says to me, he doesn't watch alternative media. He doesn't watch podcasts. He watches Fox News. So he doesn't get any of this stuff. He doesn't know any of the stuff that you and I and that we know and that we talk about. And you know what? And he has been a staunch Trump supporter. Yeah. From day one. We have had conversations where I'm like, I'm just not sure. And he's like, no, Trump's this, that. You know what he says to me? He's so serious. And I was shocked, but not shocked. Mm-hmm. He goes, is Trump involved in this Epstein stuff? He just wants to know because at this point, that's sure what it looks like. And if it looks like that to the Fox News watchers, Trump, it kind of looks like that to everybody. Yeah. And they're not my neighbor. I'm sorry, doesn't know anything about Q. Probably has never heard of Q. So he's not going to be there going, well, Trump's playing 8,000D chess. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you what it looks like to everybody. And especially when you come out and you're throwing all of your would-be former supporters under the bus, essentially telling everybody like us to go take a hike. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't look very good for you when we have all of this evidence, overwhelming evidence that these people were your friends, that you knew them, that you had to have known what was going on. And now you're covering up for them. Yeah. I don't think you're covering up for them at all. I think you're covering up for yourself. And that's where we're at. And I'm sorry that that's where we're at on Resistance Chicks and that may hurt some of your guys' feelings. But like, that's where I'm at. I do need to read some comments before
Go ahead.
I move on.
I was going to say, I think he's covering up for his friends too.
What I mean is, I guess I meant, I think that the number one, I think that they came to Trump. I truly believe this. I think Trump thought that he could release the list. I think that he could, I don't think he thought
he did anything wrong.
Exactly. And I think that his people came to him and said, hey, Trump,
You're connected with this.
you're connected with this. And so we can't. So that's why this intense 180, because they were like, we don't have a way to cover this.
I do want to be clear on how I am characterizing Trump for now. I believe that he's connected with these people who have done horrible, awful things. I believe that Trump is perverted.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see Trump as a sexual assaulter per se, like rapist or anything. That's not what I'm saying. But he obviously has a perverted look and a perverted eye for young women. And if he comes to the realization of that, which is what I kind of saw in 2016, like he seemed to pull back all that weirdness that he had, like he was more mature. It felt that way for me. That's why I was able to support him. I wouldn't have been able to support him. Okay. It felt like, Melania is mature and put together and, these things. But when you have a past like that, then you do need to come out against it and be like, you do have to explain, you do have to be a witness against your very friends who took it to the next level, who took it to actual trafficking and assault. And
here's
rape.
what I said to my neighbor. I said, I don't think that he touched little girls. And this is my honest opinion. I'm talking to my neighbor. I have no reason to lie. I do not think that he touched little girls. I said, but here's the problem. He's friends with a bunch of people that did, and he knew about it. That's my opinion.
And but he's looking at them.
Yeah.
And if he did say to a 17-year-old, you're great. And who knows if he didn't, those girls.
So the first comment I want to read is very interesting over here on YouTube from Mindy. She says, "Oh, I'm so glad you know about the books. So many have no clue to the depths of this issue. Since the beginning of of time, these things have been true. Nothing new under the sun. I auditioned for Casablanca." Pictures and videos back in the early 90s. I was 19 years old working as a cocktail waitress. A prominent attorney in my area, Ohio, did his best to get me to join him for a trip to Little St. James Island. This was in 1993.
Interesting.
That is very, very interesting. JD says, great history education tonight. Fascinating how the dots connect. Mindy says, even if a blind eye was turned, those people, in my opinion, should be held accountable. I agree with your opinion. Thank you, Mindy. Over on Rumble, let me back up here. Earlier you guys were saying, and I asked you to shout out from where you are from. Let me go back over here to Getter because this is great. Obliviously is from Spain tuning in, and I'm so glad that you're here. Obliviously has been leaving a ton of comments over on Getter, which I'm glad. I love shout out to those of you on Getter. And Lorraine says that she does her tooth powder the same way that you do. And Obliviously says tooth polish is amazing. Let's see. Maxwell was British royalty. That's why British blame the Jews. There's so many comments here. Serial rapists belong in prison. Well said. Let's see. Ford Lord always said they are saying he let him, Epstein, and minors in his casinos. My brother is a gambler. Very interesting.
He did let him in. Epstein was let into his casinos.
Lorraine says, if you cover for pedophiles, I will consider you worse than for being complicit and are also a perverted psychopath. Well said. She says, God will expose all wickedness and shine a light into every dark place. It would be better to have a millstone hung around your neck and to be cast into the midst of the sea than to harm a hair on one of these little children. Let's see. Todd says, the list is a topic of conversation at work. I'm not hearing anyone putting a good light on Trump. Well said.
Interesting.
Thank you for saying that. Lorraine says, I think the secret is Victoria is Victor and many of the models are trainees. And she says, war is very profitable for the elite, the wicked CB and all the rest that worship Satan. And she says, why do so many of our government officials have dual citizenships with Israel? That is such a great question. Heather says, watching from Finger Lakes, New York. That is awesome. Barry thinks that Tommy Robinson is an okay guy, but can be misled by certain people. He will link up with other street warriors or other people who say they are street warriors and will stand to fight against Islam.
So Barry, I know your brother had an issue with drugs. Barry, how do you feel if Tommy is well known to be a drug addict
and not just get other people to do drugs with him, which is unfortunate. Wicked Psych says we need a new word other than protesters for the people who are just paid opposition or special interest organizers motivated by money and political power that seeks to grow government. Well said. Let's see. Wicked Psych says if you look at the money involved behind these groups, I would consider it money laundering. The ones in the USA, many may apply there too in the UK. It's difficult to trace the money completely. The list was in possession of the Biden DOJ, and who knows if a list actually exists. I would need to see an actual chain of custody. Here's my thought process on that idea. I get you. I get the idea of, oh, this list was in the possession of the Bidens and the DOJ. Let's rephrase what this list is. Yes, Epstein had a list. I believe he had like a black book list. I'm sure he did. It's just a Rolodex of contacts. He didn't have like a cell phone like we do that all of your contacts are in there, right? But I can guarantee you that he had a list, because it's hard to keep track of all these wealthy elite people who will fiddle little girls. You know, you can't always memorize those. Or boys. So I'm sure he had a list of people that he knew that he could, you know, run through. And then, of course, I'm sure he started to memorize some of it, right? The problem with this idea that the Biden DOJ messed with the list is in the evidence that's there, meaning this guy, this name, this connection, and then you put together a list. It's not difficult to put together a list of people who Epstein was communicating with for the sake of sex trafficking. All right. If our DOJ cannot do that fairly quickly when internet warriors and AI could do it super fast like that, then they're keeping it from you.
Yeah.
Okay. The evidence is all right there. With what little facts we have, I can compile you a list. Okay. This is ridiculous. This idea that, oh, I don't trust the list because it was in the hands of the evidence is all right there. Like it's lit. Okay, maybe it might not be an exhaustive list. Maybe there's some names that should be on there that were taken off and we can dig and keep finding those, but at least we have a starter packet. What do you guys think? Do we have a starter packet? We'd love to hear from you. If you want to weigh in on the conversation, you can visit us at resistancechicks.com. And if you want to watch the rest of this episode, and of course you do, again, visit us at resistancechicks.com. We're so thankful that you're here watching